depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome to episode 56 of PTS Africa's Lunch and Learn. Today's topic is Fueling Progress, Powered by Purpose. Purpose is a spark that ignites progress. As we move into the second half of the year, fatigue can set in. I don't know about you, but for me, certainly I feel the lull in my step. But reconnecting with what truly drives us refuels our energy, helping us stay focused, intentional, and resilient. Emotional intelligence empowers us to align values with action, turning renewed purpose into sustained momentum. In today's EQ Lunch and Learn, we'll be reflecting on how purpose strengthens resilience and clarity. We'll learn how some EQ tools that we can use to beat that mid-year fatigue and sustain some motivation to get us through the year. We'll also talk about some strategies to stay grounded and motivated through turbulence. And finally, we'll also be discovering how purpose just transforms everyday effort into lasting impact. So before I go on and on about how purpose is what I'm all about, let me introduce myself. I'm Susan Chege. I'm the General Manager of PTS Africa, and I am so excited about this conversation. So let's begin with introducing our amazing panelists for today. And I'm starting with a bit of a bias. July is my birthday month. So I'm going to start with my fellow July baby, Jasmine Beal. Jasmine is the president and CEO of Virtue Key Consulting Group and an award-winning global learning and talent development leader. Her background includes over 15 years of experience in strategic deployment, merger and acquisition activities, instructional design, leadership coaching, DE&I, succession planning, and performance development. She works alongside CEOs and executive leaders who are leading organizations through growth, change, or reinvention and need their people to move with the strategy, not lag behind it. Virtue Key Consulting Group partners with mid-sized enterprise organizations to unlock what Jasmine calls people power, where performance, talent, and leadership development reinforce one another. Let me bring her up as I bring out her quote of the day. Welcome, Jasmine.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. It is early morning where I am at. I'm in the United States in Richmond, Virginia, and looking forward to this conversation because it is mid-year and you know what, the burnout is real. So looking forward to talking about ways that purpose is impactful within our lives to keep on going.
Thanks, Jasmine. Jasmine's quote for the day is "Success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it" by Maya Angelou. To learn more about Jasmine, connect with her on LinkedIn. I'll be sharing her LinkedIn profile on the chat, which is doing what it does. Oop. Okay, I'll be sharing that as we move along. Allow me to just start welcoming our second panelist, Coach Mills. Mills W. Maina is a transformational trainer. She's a speaker and communication strategist with nearly a decade of experience helping individuals and organizations discover purpose, communicate with clarity, and lead with impact. She's the founder and lead coach of Thriving Destiny, a faith-based coaching platform focused on purpose discovery and personal growth. And she serves as lead coach for the Foundation Speakers Program at the African Center for Public Speaking. She has coached over 100 emerging speakers. Over and above that, she also serves on the board of FOEC, which is Federation of Women Entrepreneurs Kenya, and she leads the learning and development initiatives for women entrepreneurs. She holds a Bachelor of Business Administration from African International University and is a certified life purpose coach, mental health advocate, and public speaking coach. Join me in welcoming Coach Mills.
Hey, I'm really happy to be here and I'm excited for the session we're about to have. Like Mobile says, I'm all about purpose. I'm all about people knowing who they are and what they are and how they can use that awareness to just show up very energetic and intentional in how they live out their life and how they serve. Thank you.
Excellent. And thank you and so much. Welcome, Coach Mills. And her quote for the day is, "Be intentional about living out your purpose, Someone's life is depending on it. To learn more about Coach Mills, we'll be sharing her LinkedIn profile on the chat. And then we will be joined shortly by our final panelist, Peter Odhiambo. Peter is a leader who specializes in human-centered design, customer experience, and corporate wellness. As a medical and client experience manager at Viva 365, which is part of the Platform Group, he changes complex health insurance interactions into smooth, holistic, and caring journeys that build client trust and improve operations. He's a passionate supporter of overall well being. Peter promotes the blending of mental, physical, and emotional health in the workplace to encourage sustained performance and business growth. He has a strong background in marketing, management, and customer experience. With his training as an international certified personal trainer, he combines data driven approaches with psychological insights to create resilient, high performing teams. Peter's quote of the day is: love what you do it with passion, pour your heart into it. That's where greatness emerges. You'll be able to see his LinkedIn profile on our chat. So without further ado, let's get into it. And just before I pose our first question to our panelists, I want to acknowledge our audience. You're so very welcome. As we always say, you bring the lunch, we bring the learning. We appreciate you. Take a moment to jot in the chat where you're joining us from. And also, as the conversation continues, tell us some more topics that you'd like to see us unpack in future Lunch and Learn conversations. So, Jasmine and Coach Mills, let's start right at the top. Today's conversation is about how purpose is, fueling us, or how we can use purpose to fuel us. So now that we're halfway through the year, I don't know if I feel that lull. I don't know if you do, but to help us unpack a little bit, what does actually, what's the role of purpose in actually driving us or motivating us to keep moving day to day? We can start with Jasmine, since I brought you up first.
Sure thing. So, yes, I definitely feel the lull of mid-year, especially how fast this year is going. But in terms of purpose, it's always going back to your why. What motivates us, what drives us, and what is our mission when we're going through our day to day. And I think about this in my personal life and also professionally as well. Because when you're disconnected and you don't necessarily have a purpose, things feel like check the box. It gets really mundane. It gets really tiring as well. So that purpose, at least for me, I know, what times may be rough. We might have a bump in the road, but you know what? I know that there is a goal that needs to be reached. And if I continue, there's the other side of that. And that's what purpose is to me.
Hmm. I like that. I think breaking it down to it is really your why. I love that, and making it quite simple. Coach Mills, let's come over to you. What's your take?
Um, you know, I really like that this is happening mid-year, and it really ties so well to purpose and what that does and how it carries out through the year. There's a certain type of tiredness that usually comes. It has nothing to do with how many hours we've worked. It's the tiredness that sets in when we've been busy, generally busy, but somewhere along the way, we've lost the thread of why we started. Now, that's the media fatigue that we are talking about. And I think most people who are in this room is because they resonate with that. That's why they came. And here's what I've discovered in my journey in coaching is that most of the time, we lose motivation not because we've been running out of energy, but because we've lost the connection with why we are doing what we are doing. And purpose is the emotional fuel that keeps us going. So when your work is disconnected from your values, every task will feel heavier than it actually is. But when we reconnect why, like my co-panelist has mentioned, it becomes it becomes more bearable, right? So when we reconnect with why something matters, whether that's serving your family, whether it's making a difference, whether it's becoming a person you've been called to be, you don't necessarily have less work. You simply have more meaning, and the meaning changes how you experience effort, right? And so purpose is not something you chase, it's something that we return to. when motivation is tied to outcomes like targets, deadline, results, it will run out. But when it's tied to your identity, to who you are and why you are, then that gives you your renewable energy. So when we hit this media, the question is not how do we get our energy back? The question is, am I still moving in the direction of who I was made to be? Because purpose doesn't remove the weight. What purpose does, it reminds us why it's worth carrying. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Coach. And I love that you've taken it a step further. It's not just about the why, but it's reconnecting with the why. And I think that's where the burnout sets in, as you say, when we lose that connection or sight of it. Welcome, Peter. We had just gotten the conversation started. You're very, very welcome. We had introduced you and shared a little bit about you. So I'm going to just throw you right into the deep end with the first reflection on what is the role of purpose when it comes to fueling us and keeping us going, motivating us through the second half of the year, which is where we're at?
Hi, Susan and team. Very good to be here. Oh wow, that's it's an interesting conversation. And when I look at purpose, I look at it from why are you doing it? Like, and for me, I think looking back at the years that I have been within the space that I'm at, within insurance and also wellness, it gets boring when it's not something that you want to get up and do, and it gets complicated when it's not something that you want to keep on doing. And coming up with the solutions for different people also becomes very tasking when it's not something that you love. So for me, I think when you discover it early in life, it's a good thing. But some of us have also discovered it quite late in life also, from where I sit. It's something that if we were taught in schools, we would have really thrived. We would have been in different spaces. But then again, you learn it on the go. So just correlating it to the space that I'm in when it comes to just finding your why, it's that thing that kicks you off that bed in the moments when you're like, I don't want to get up, I don't want to leave this room, I don't want to leave this house. Think about the solution you're going to give your people. You think about the lives that you're going to impact. And sometimes you're not even going to impact anyone. You're just going to impact yourself by leaving that room. And that's the why that you're looking for. You're doing it for yourself first before you even impact anyone else out there. So that's my biggest learning point, and that's just one thing that keeps fueling me every other day. I look at myself first as my first project. Why am I doing it? If I'm not doing it for me, then it's not worth doing it. So if I can impact myself and then impact everyone else, then that's my purpose and that's my why.
Excellent. I love that. The thing that kicks you out of bed when you don't feel like getting out of bed. I like that a lot. So Peter, as we started, we were saying, we recognize that mid-year there's something that does happen, and from our different perspectives we've shared, how we feel and what possibly causes that. From your perspective as a working with many professionals, that dip is there for everyone. There's a dip in motivation halfway through the year. In your perspective, what are some of the common reasons that people lose sight of their purpose?
So interesting. I'm just looking at the numbers. I'm also sitting from my space, the insurance space, us as an organization, and also industry wide. You'll notice that this is when now we are motivating our teams. This is when we are doing our team buildings. This is when we are trying to look for activities that don't look very tasking. Some have reached their targets, some have not. Some are pushing towards maybe doing more for half the year. And I think when you look at the numbers don't lie. If I'm looking at my past 5 years within the space, corporate world, within the first half year, if you've not attained the targets, then that is out the window. Forget it. You're not attaining it for them. And I think one thing that we've tried and customized different is how do we recharge and how do we even look at it different? The other day I was sharing a comment with a team that I'm leading about the World Cup, basically, and you'd realize first half most of the teams were a bit edgy, chasing, trying to play with strategy, trying to be within those formations. But towards the end of the match, strategies go out the window. You're going out for the win. You're going out to chase a result. A good example, I think, for that is Argentina. Most of the matches they were winning them last minute.
Yeah.
Yes, we can go into the referees beat, FIFA supporting them and all that. But you look at the efforts that were coming in from the teams. It's the last minute that was actually pushing these guys to winning the matches. So I think just to correlate that with the question is you have to look at it as as a journey. You're not looking at it as an event. You're looking at it as yes, we've gotten to this point. This is the match we can account for. This is the match we can quantify. But if I want to get to this other space, what can I do different than what I've been doing through the year? So I'm even looking at, in terms of strategy, how we've looked at it from our end also as an organization. Yes, there's that push for Q1 and half one, and you're looking at it as we've managed this much. We, we've not attained the target. So do we pack it up and go on team building and say we are done for the year? No. We are looking at strategy for the next half. How do we now get these numbers to this level? And then how now do we energize the teams as we prepare them again for the next phase, which is now the new year coming in. It's a journey, and we cannot isolate and say, no, half the year we are figuring out a new strategy. No, it's just building on what is already there and just finding out what really works for different spaces. On an individual level, I've also encountered that burnout, I'll tell you that for sure, where Q1 you feel like you half one you feel like you've done your best, you feel like you've attained the targets, but then you're asking yourself, would it hurt to make one more connection? Would it hurt to engage one more client? Would it hurt to add one more exercise to my regimen? Would it hurt to try a new recipe? It doesn't. It's just adding on to what you've already been doing, compounding, and trying to see what more can I do. And the results are immense, and the results speak for themselves. You just have to continue doing that little thing that you run away from doing. So, in a nutshell, that's how I look at it.
I love that. I think I'm going to stick with that imagery of play like Argentina. Like, it could be the 80th minute, but this could turn it around. I like that. I think that gives a lot of hope for a lot of us. I don't know about you guys, but yeah, for me, I'm going to stick with that one. Let me come to you, Jasmine. And, you have quite a bit of exposure and experience in the HR space. So from a HR perspective, what is the role that a strong sense of purpose can play in influencing employee engagement, resilience, and performance?
Well, thank you. In terms of purpose and that guiding light when it comes to an HR perspective and HR being that catalyst when it comes to people driving the strategy and making sure that people are understanding what they're trying to achieve and why they're trying to achieve it. Purpose is always going to be the cornerstone. But I do have to say that, especially now in our global economy, how things have changed, especially with reductions in force, there's a lot of reorgs going on, that purpose is lost because people, and especially leaders in certain spaces, lose track of what the mission, vision, and values are of that company, and they're looking for quick fixes. They're looking at the symptoms that are going on within organizations and saying, well, our leaders aren't getting it. We're not ramping up fast enough. And part of that too is not giving that clarity to all employees. A lot of times strategy stays at the top with C-suite and also VP and director level. But then when it comes to direct labor or even individual contributors, that was muddy from the beginning. If you would go through the whole organization and ask, what are your 4 priorities for the year? How does that connect back to the bigger mission, vision, and values? And what's your purpose in this? You're going to get a lot of different answers. And I've seen that throughout my career as well. So I say this to leaders in organizations and people who are within organizations as well. If you are unclear, ask the question. And it's good to have a recalibration within your executive teams and say, okay, we are doing a lot of activities that are not moving the needle. Where do we need to take the break and where do we need to reorganize ourselves? And also from a change management perspective, how can we make sure that everybody's rowing in the same direction? So when you do that, things change. You're able to make sure that those targets that you're looking at, let's say it's Q3 and there's a fire that happens, that could have been resolved earlier if that purpose was already foundational and there. And also allows your employees to say, you know what, this particular thing that's coming on my table right now, this may not be the best course of action. Here's what we should do instead. And when you have employees that are agile and they're moving in that way, it creates a world of difference.
I love that. I love that. So bringing forth to the conversation that purpose serves a bit of like a compass and helps us to
Yes, it
evaluate
does.
what should I do, what should I not do, what should I give my effort and time, and what shouldn't. I really, really like that. And that kind of, you can break that down to a day-to-day application. Thank you for sharing that. Coach Mills, tell me,
Yep.
you're in the self-awareness space, you're working with young people, older people. From an emotional intelligence perspective, why is purpose such an important driver of motivation? And, especially where there's maybe uncertainty, like kind of what Jasmine was bringing up, our economic state is, challenging, and organizations are constantly changing and lives are constantly changing. Where does purpose come into play here?
Okay, that's a really wonderful question. Now, emotional intelligence at its core, it's the ability to understand what's happening inside of you and use that awareness to navigate what's happening around you, right? And purpose sits right at the intersection of that. And I'd actually argue that purpose doesn't remove uncertainty, different from popular belief. What purpose does, it gives uncertainty direction. And here's why. Because at the end of it, it all comes down to one word: identity, how much you are aware of yourself. When we're in seasons of uncertainty, the external world becomes a bit unstable. It could be the job changes, or it could be a relationship shift, or like the economy does sometimes shift unexpectedly. And when everything outside is shaking, we naturally reach for something fixed. And purpose is that fixed point. Purpose says, regardless of what's happening around me, I know who I am, I know what I'm here to do, and that knowing creates what I would describe as a psychological safety from the inside out. Purpose acts as an anchor. It reminds us that I may not I may not control my circumstances, but I still know who I am and and what I'm working towards. And that is incredibly stabilizing emotionally. And I often tell my clients that clarity doesn't eliminate storms. What it does, like Jasmine has said, it gives a compass while we're in the storms. And here's the shift that changes everything. When people lose sight of their purpose, every setback feels like it's such a storm, and it feels like a failure. But when people connected to purpose, setbacks become information, becomes a resource. We stop asking, why is this happening to me, and start asking, what is this teaching me in this season? And that shift alone really changes your resilience.
I love that. I love that. I think, knowing who I am and what I'm here to do. And I want to just throw a curveball in there because this conversation on purpose has become common, but then it also feels like it's for an elite few. Like finding my purpose is this 3 a.m. epiphany that's going to happen. And the Lord will speak to me and I will know why I was created.
Mhm.
Break that down. So that makes people feel like, okay, I haven't had my 3 a.m. epiphany. So do I not know my purpose? Is this some divine thing that's going to happen just for some select few? Or just break it down to really, how does this work on a day-to-day simple way?
It's like you said, it's not gonna come as a burning bush. I wish it did, but your journey of of purpose starts with self-awareness. If you don't know, if you don't know who you are, then you can't know why you are. So that's the very foundation. If you know who you are, if you know, I have a framework that I call the apps framework. If you know your abilities, that is the things you're really good at, your gifts, your talents. If you know your passion, things that really light your heart or things that grieve your heart. And if you know your personality, and then if you know your story, your life story, because you understand that things happen to you for a reason. If you have a good understanding of that, then you will be able to have an awareness of, you will start connecting the dots and seeing, oh, I am who I am because of why I am. So
Mm,
once you have a clarity of who you are, your self awareness, then the why becomes a bit more clear. So it's not a burning bush. It will not come with an envelope, and it's a journey. And I know as we continue with the panel, I will touch on that as well. But it's not a destination. It's a journey, and that journey is self awareness. Yeah.
excellent. Thanks for clarifying that. And I think I've heard all three of you have talked about it being a journey, right? Which means that it's not this cast in stone thing that is there, and we all have to work towards it. It's more developmental, and every day it's evolving. And I guess we'll get into that. I must remind myself that I am the host and not the panelist. So let me acknowledge some of our audience out there. I see you, Daniel Macau, joining from Nairobi. Always great to have you with us, Macau. Ooh, we have Stuart coming in from Dublin. Ooh, and I wonder what time it is there, Stuart. Great to have you with us this afternoon, morning, evening. One of our regulars, Charles Masinda, joining us from Mombasa. Lily, good to see you. Ooh, I think this might be our first Japan. Godfrey, great to have you from Japan. This is really great. And Samantha, I see you in Cape Town. Please, everyone, take a moment to just jot in some topics that you'd like us to explore in future Lunch and Learn. And please, by all means, engage with our panelists by throwing in some questions that you'd like to see them addressing in today's conversation. Peter, let me come back to you, and let's take it now to a different perspective of how or where we left off. How can we make this practical? What are some of the typical or practical habits that you've either applied for yourself or seen somebody else applying that have helped you or them to stay motivated and focused when the energy begins to fade?
Susan, that's a really good one. I think one of the things we need to recognize, I think you've also mentioned, and Mills also mentioned that it's not an aha moment. Purpose doesn't happen. It's not a burning bush where everything is now figured out. And for me, I'm looking at it from the space of habits. It's building small habits and just making sure that we stick with them. I think that I've shared with you also. I think I've also shared with a few other people within my space. Is just being able to sit down and jot down um, different things that you're looking at within your day. Assuming you start your day at 4 a.m. and these are the items that you are feeling like you want to achieve through the day, putting that down and visualizing how you're going to achieve that goes a long way in terms of how you're going to basically push that direction. And at the same time, just recognizing that some of these items are not going to happen the way you want them to happen, because again, there are things that are variables that will be dependent on other items. So also just recognizing that these ones are not within your reach, and they're basically not in your place to govern how they do happen. So setting habits for me has worked. I've read different people who have different sort of habits in terms of how they start their day and how they plan their days. So it can be relative individuals depending on the spaces that you're in, but just to look at what works for you at that point and what you can actually look at as a small win. The other thing that I really push for, or for myself, I'm really learning, is just being in that mindset where I'm not just looking to survive. I'm not just looking to be here for a paycheck. If it's work, it's not about a paycheck. It's about those small items that you're doing that actually matter. And it can be as little as just being a listening ear to your colleague. It can be as little as thinking twice before responding to that email. Just how do you um, set up your mindset in a way that it's purposeful for you and it actually matters within the space that you're in. Um, it, it's not rocket science. I also tend to think that because I think when you look at it in a holistic bit, it looks like it's something so huge, but it's the compounding efforts that you put in that actually make it just being a bit systematic in how you handle your matters. I mean, um, if you've lived your life in a certain way where things haphazard, try and just settle down and look at them in a strategic. Between this time I'm meant to be doing emails, this time to this time I'm meant to be doing calls, but I need to make this connection within this week. Just making sure that you set those small achievable goals and also just clapping for yourself when you're able to achieve them and shutting down that noise that tells you you are not able to achieve this. And I think the biggest for me, being in the corporate space, which we sort of um, over glorify, is looking at the big numbers. When you look at the numbers, sometimes they scare you. You have targets, you have crazy targets. You are looking at getting to 1 million and you don't have even one to count. Start with counting that one, then moving to two, moving to three. Don't jump to the highest level without basically just compounding on the little that you're doing. So it's not about having a crazy big strategy that you want to tackle. Just looking at it from those small bites, then you're able to finish that plate. That would be my take, Susan.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Peter. And I particularly pick out, where you say it's not this rocket science, and even marrying that with the thought that even in that moment, asking yourself, okay, what am I here to do? How can this still be purposeful? Is the word that you use. I really like that, and I'll carry that. I love the lunch and learns because as much as our audience is learning, I always find that every time I'm engaged, whether as a panelist or a host, I keep learning, and I'm hoping my panelists are also experiencing the same learning. Jasmine, I've been seeing you nodding, and I'm like, just jump in with whatever it is that you want to add. So let me come to you, and you can, throw in any comments that have been. I could see the wheels turning in your mind. So anything that you want to throw in there, but also, you talked about clarity within an organization for there to be a unified purpose. But putting that aside, in terms of having those conversations and revisiting that, what is the thing that works against that? What are some of the habits or mindsets or some of the things that happen in the workplace that actually end up gradually disconnecting people from their own sense of purpose?
Yeah, what and I loved everything that every panelist has said. And yes, the wheels are turning this morning for me, and I hope it is for everyone else as well who's online. But when it comes to that purpose and how to drive that away, right? A lot of times it's how we communicate with each other within the workplace as well. And we have to be mindful about how we say things too, especially when things get tense. What we're trying to hit targets, we are trying to move and pivot. But as you talked about in that previous question with the move and pivot, I always say, is it taking away energy or is it bringing energy? Is it worth it? And I always use the term, is the juice worth the squeeze, that type of thing, because when you do certain things in activities, let's say is a milestone you're trying to reach, and that particular thing that's happening, it's not serving you, it's not serving anybody else. It's one of those things you have to push to the side. When we talk about the communication piece and how purpose can be eroded or how confidence can be eroded too to achieve that as well, there's an author named Minda Harts who I love. And she recently did a lunch and learn last week, and she talked about, is the communication style that you're using giving a sense of energy to people, or is it eroding as well? What was the reason why you said what you said? Because if you are constantly downing people, that's not going to necessarily up performance. That's actually going to lower performance. And you're doing that to erode people more so. So when you're trying to build that confidence for people to lead the charge and lead the way, we have to be mindful of the things we said, because that can break someone's spirit, and words are very powerful. So I want everybody to keep that in mind.
Excellent. I love that, Jasmine. And I think, it ties with what Peter was talking about. When we review as an organization performance, we just look at the really huge numbers and we don't take time to recognize the small incremental ones that will eventually funnel in. And I think at Midyear, a lot of organizations have that practice of let's review the numbers and let's crack the whip. And Jasmine, you offer that cracking the whip that won't necessarily give you the response you want and the performance that you're craving. Excellent. Coach Mills, let's come back to you. And I want to hear your perspective on this. What are some of, still being very practical, what are some of what is it that people can do when they feel overwhelmed or unmotivated? What's a practical technique that they can utilize in that moment to realign with their purpose so that they can move forward?
Okay, good. So first, I want to put it out there that feeling overwhelmed and unmotivated is not a character flaw. All right, it's a signal. And the worst thing we can do is push through it without listening to what it's telling us. And the technique I would want to offer is, and I use it with my own client, I call it the pause, notice, choose method. Okay, it's quite easy, very practical. So when you feel overwhelmed, don't immediately ask or try to rush to understand how do I get motivated. Instead, ask these three questions instead. So pause, and in the aspect of emotional intelligence, ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And name that emotion. Not I'm stressed. Be specific. Ask, is it fear? Is it exhaustion? Are you feeling disappointed? Disappointed. Are you feeling misaligned? So name that emotion. It could even be envy. So name that emotion. What are you feeling right now? And then once you've named it, then you notice it. So what is the emotion trying to tell you? Our emotions are not it's never the enemy. They are messengers. So when we feel unmotivated, something in us is usually pointing to a misalignment between what we're doing and who we are. So it's really important to, after you've paused and name it, to notice and try and understand what is it. And then after you have that awareness, then you choose the next action that aligns with the person that you want to become. So how from there is when you can have a navigation map sort of how do you get out of it. And not a very, don't even focus on a lengthy map like a month one or like a quarterly one, just in that moment. Or what is the easiest, what is the lowest lying fruit that you can do to get out of that place, and focus on that. And this is where I would also layer another question that I would call the return question. Ask yourself, what is the one thing I'm doing in this season that only I can do? Not what looks impressive, not what others are expecting you to do, just the thing that if you stopped doing, the world will generally lose something. Because the moment you reconnect with that, even briefly, something shifts. The overwhelmed suddenly disappears because it becomes navigatable. Because purpose isn't built through giant decisions, it's actually built through small aligned ones. And small acts of alignment, consistently chosen repeatedly, eventually becomes a purposeful life. So pair all that, the pose, the notice, the choosing, and then if you can also pair it with the 2 minutes journaling, because journaling is very underrated. But if you can get into the habit of journaling, you will almost always find clarity you couldn't access when everything was just chaotic. So clarity is found in the chaos. Yeah, it's found when we get still enough to remember who we are. And if you can apply that, then you will certainly get it to a point of clarity.
I'm seeing a theme here. I think each of you is offering that you need to stop and take stock, right? Jasmine brings out that let's evaluate this and see, is this adding to or depleting my energy and my motivation? And Peter was talking about stop and acknowledge the progress that has been made, and then see what is actually feasible going forward. And Mills, you bring it all together with pause, name, choose. What is it that you are actually, if you stop doing, will have impact in this space that you're in? And I like the journaling. I must admit, I journal and then 5 days later I stop, and then I remember, oh yes, journaling. But whether you're able to do it consistently or not, when you do it, it still has great impact. And I love that reminder. Audience, I see you. I see people who've joined in from the UAE. Great to have you with us. I'm seeing great shout outs about the pause, notice, and choose, and acknowledging that emotions are information, they're messengers. And purpose is not a destination, it's a journey. Keep bringing them in, guys. And even as you would be surprised that we're almost wrapping up. As we wrap up, we'd love to hear whether this conversation, how valuable it has been to you on a scale of 1 to 5, so that we can know what you'd like to see us do next. And please throw in your questions to our panelists so that they can address specific questions. I know that the online team is also addressing questions as they come, but drop them in. So back to you, my wonderful panelists. You guys are making this so much fun for me. So, Peter, let me come to you. You said it's the kick that gets you out of bed, but there are those days where you just feel really stuck and you're questioning the direction that you're in. And particularly at this point in the year, you say, you're tired, you've been doing it, you feel like you've done your best. At that point, when you feel like zero battery, what is one small step that one can take to regain momentum?
Hi, Susan. It's interesting that all this conversation is intertwined, and I love the comments from Nils. I love the comments from Jasmine, yourself, Susan. I think we're all in agreement that when purpose is leaving our body, it doesn't live once. It also lives in trickles, and we almost feel it, and sometimes we deny it, but it's there. So we do have the opportunity to shut that tap and just slow down the leak. And for me, I think the way I'm looking at it and the stock take I do it on a daily, but I have gone back and resolved to at least having a session with myself end of the day. This 20-minute session, I look at it from the point of my desk. I look at it from my personal life. So the way I look at the reset, I'm looking at it. Actually, time it, Susan. That's how serious I am about it. I time the reset, and I give myself 20 minutes to just look at what's happening in my life. So what I ask myself is, yes, I love what I'm doing. Am I good at it? Yes, I'm good at it. Is it something that I need? Yes, I need it because it pays my bills and it pays my rent, and it supports the lifestyle that I want to have. Is it giving me? Is it loving me back? And loving me back is not being me, but just making me feel like I'm making a difference. And then I look at it from the different aspects. Is it my professional life, my personal life, um, love life, or just the interactions that we have with everyone that is within our spaces? Then now I sort of compartmentalize them in terms of, if this is not working out for me, how can I change it? If this is working out for me in a good way, how can I up that and do it even better? If this is still not making sense, how do I improve on that same aspect? So for me now, I'm looking at it from four different levels, and I'm looking at it from, how do those make me feel? Yes, at the end of the day, I know how they make me feel will affect how I handle someone else on the other side and how I impact them and how I make them feel. But it has to start from me. So if it's not making sense for me and it's not making sense in terms of business sense for the organization, then I'm leaving it out. I'm not working on it. I'm not pushing it. I'm focusing on the good that you're doing. And I think I've done it now for a year. I feel like it's giving me a bit more clarity. Again, going back to clarity that Mills had mentioned, it's just compounds and it makes it so simple. And in your head, you're like, why weren't we taught these things in school? Because it makes life very easy, and very worth living in the sense that there's sort of a formula to it, and it's not a complicated formula. So the purpose reset I do, I'm just looking at it in terms of those aspects of my life that I feel are making sense for me. And it takes just 20 minutes in a day, at the end of the day. And then the other thing that I do for myself is I speak to myself out loud. If it's something that is I'm doing well, I'll make sure I'm telling myself, Peter, you're doing well in this. If it's something that I'm doing poorly in, I also call myself out. And I tell myself, Peter, you did wrong in terms of the connections you made today. Peter, you didn't handle that client well, or Peter, you didn't basically add value to this client. So it's also just calling yourself out and being able to be truthful to yourself, because it's you you're working on, and the you that you show up as the next day determines a lot more in terms of even yourself in the future. So I'm looking at it as an investment in myself, just being able to call myself out and being able to be honest with myself. And it's just that reset that you do at the end of the day, or that you do at the end of the month. When you're doing your normal budget, when you're looking at how much you spent, go back also in terms of your emotional energy. How much have you spent? How much are you living for yourself? Because I think um, I'm just looking at myself from the empathy space I come from. You expend so much energy and you spend so much emotional currency with people, but how much do you put into yourself? Thank you, Susan.
I really love that, Peter. What I'm hearing is let's take ourselves as seriously as we take our businesses, right? So you have your mid-year evaluation of how the business is doing. Have the same, like call yourself to a meeting and check in with yourself. This has gone well. This hasn't gone well. This is the direction that we should be taking. I love it. And I think investing that time then gives you that feel. Thank you for sharing that. Jasmine, looking at it from the organization perspective, we have leaders on call here who would want to perhaps inspire sustained motivation within their teams. What is one simple action that they can start implementing immediately to help their people do that?
One action that people can do, especially leaders, to make sure their people are motivated and just ready to take the charge is be transparent. I think we lost a lot of that. We became very transactional, very mechanical as we have gone along. And it's about being transparent within your groups when you're talking through your one on ones as well. And I always say this: performance should never be a surprise. And since everybody is a contributing factor to the organizations that they serve, they need to know in terms of what's going on in the business as well. So when you provide that transparency and clarity, people don't make up things in their head in terms of, what's going on in the company. They already know that they are purposeful in what they're doing. So when you think about for yourself, and I love what Peter said in terms of having your own self evaluation as well, you want to make sure that you check in. How am I feeling? How are things going? What can I do differently? So using that from a personal perspective and also within your organization is definitely something that works, and keeping at it. And when you model that behavior too, there's the comfortability that comes along with it. And it shows in terms of that culture shift that a lot of people are talking about in organizations, and having empathy as well. And empathy is a good thing. We talk about how, companies are saying, "Oh, I think we're being too empathetic." I don't think there's such thing as that. We are human beings. We all strive to make sure that we can live and we can learn. So we got to make sure that we are communicating in that way.
Thanks so much, Jasmine. And oh my God, guys, we're running out of time. But before we do, you can start thinking about your parting shot, and I'll take a look at what our audience is saying. But let me come to you, Coach Mills, and just give us one quick daily ritual or a mindset practice that can help people to stay consistent and grounded in their values and purpose. Something that I can just from tomorrow morning start applying that will help me to stay consistent and grounded.
Okay, great. Now, here, allow me to be a bit biased. And so this one is quite personal for me because I believe the 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 practices that actually stick are the ones we live by ourselves. So I'll share mine, and you're free to pick it up and apply it in your life. So every morning, it's very transferable. So every morning before I start my day, before I get into the to-do list and listen to everything I'm a mom, I'm a business, before the world happens, I begin with what I call meditational stillness, a bit of a context. So basically, and I'm not selling myself, but every Monday, I usually send out a 3-2-1 Monday Faith Digest to my readers. So it's a newsletter where it has 3 affirmations, it has 2 scriptures, and it has 1 reflective question for the week. That happens every Monday. But here's the thing about it, I don't just normally write it. Actually, it was supposed to be for me, but then I was like, let me just do it so that I'm consistent. It was like an accountability thing that just grew. And I live by it. So every single day of the week, I always return to those 3 affirmations, right? And then I go over the 2 scriptures and I pray about it every single day. I allow it to be the anchor for me before the noise of the day sets in. And that scripture tells us, as a man thinketh, so he is. And also, we are urged to be transformed by the renewal of our mind. And this is not just some spiritual advice, it's actually an emotional intelligence practice. So, what we consistently feed our minds is what shapes our identity. And when identity is clear, purpose become accessible, even in turbulence. Because what happens is most of us, we wake up and immediately we receive. We receive messages, notifications, other people's agendas and activities. And before we even have a chance to check in with ourselves, the day has already decided who we are going to be that day. And that's a very risky way to live, because the whole intentional stillness in reverse, it says, before I receive anything from the world, let me first check in with who I am and why I'm here. Now, if you pair that with what Peter had suggested earlier, those reflections, ideally at the evening, but just doing, the reflecting on what your day was. You can, these are some, I don't do it daily, so let me not come here like I'm very perfect, but it's something that it's encouraged. I would want to do it daily, but those reflections on how your day was, just reflecting on what gave me energy today, what drained my energy, what gave me energy, what drained my energy, and where do I feel mostly like myself today. So if you can get into a habit of doing that daily, ideally, or even weekly, over time, you'll notice that a pattern will emerge. Now, these patterns are incredibly revealing. If you really pay attention to them, they're incredibly revealing. And I believe self-awareness grows through that reflection. The problem is most people want clarity, but very few people want to take the time to reflect. But the truth is, reflection is where clarity is born. So you cannot evade it. So if you can do it daily, good. You are on your way to being an A student in a master class in purpose and self awareness. But the bare minimum, just to do weekly check-ins, do even monthly check-ins. Because you want to make it as sustainable as possible. So that's what, if you can borrow that and apply it, it's really gonna redirect you in your path of living out a purpose-driven life, and also being very clarity in who you are.
I
Thank
really love that. I feel challenged and encouraged all together. And I saw Charles in the chat earlier saying that when he journals, if he journals regularly, and if you get lucky, the process of journaling, even the answers pop out at you to the questions that you're having. So thank you so much for sharing that, Coach Mills. And because we like our conversations to be useful and practical, I would like to go around and just hear from Jasmine and Peter as well. What are some practical or some practices that you personally are applying or you've watched closely being applied that can help us in progress towards purpose?
I'll jump in and go. And Coach Mills has offered some gems today. So I am definitely going to put a lot of that in practice, especially the journaling part, because I have to admit that I am not the best with it. I'll write something and I'll go back to it, but that continuation is going to be important. When it comes to purpose, and I use this a lot personally and also when training and coaching as well, is that check-in methodology, and we all agree on that and have used it. Do a check-in with yourself. How am I feeling today? What is driving me today? What is draining my energy today? And also be transparent about it too. I think a lot of times, and I guess I should talk for myself versus everybody else, but sometimes we hold things in thinking it's only us, and you will be surprised that it's not only you. So it's okay to do that gut check with yourself, but also talk to your team as well. If you're working on a particular project and you're thinking something is off, I feel like I'm just doing it because I'm scared to lose my job or whatever that means. No, do not have that thought in your head. I know that it is a scary time right now. A lot of things are changing in our global economy and in work, but you have to make sure you ask the question because you never know with that question what can come of it and the positive outcome that can go with it. So always trust that gut feel and apply that gut feel also to what you're seeing across data and analytics as well. We need the combination of the two.
Thanks, Jasmine. And you bring out again, this is the second time you're talking about transparency. And I love it because you're really calling leaders to come out and humanize themselves, creating that space that then other people can feel like, okay, I can raise this question or I can raise this concern. Leaders out there, I hope you're hearing this. Create those spaces where these conversations can happen so that people can then stay aligned to their purpose. Thank you so much for that. Peter, would you like to add something to that practice and habits conversation?
Yes, Susan, I think the ladies have called it as it is, and they put it very plainly and very simply. Just to add, I think one of the things that I'm learning, again, it's not something that I've done for a long time. I'm also learning, and it's sort of working out and it's helping. Is I've come up with three main things that I'm focusing on. One is a promise to myself in terms of my health. So how do I do it? If I promise myself I'm going to at least get a workout done thrice a week, I have to hold myself accountable to that. So that promise to my health, I make sure that I align with it. The days that I do not align, I'm not making excuses. I'm finding another day to basically pay back those dues. The other thing is a promise to a person. So I have an accountability partner who I go to. I promised I'm going to achieve this. Um, she holds me accountable. I achieved it or not, that's for her to decide. So if you did make it and you did set something to do and you ended up doing it, then that's a promise to that person. So it helps you at the end of the day, but you're doing it through her. So it's just putting yourself in check. Then the other thing I'm also doing is a promise to my craft. Um, I recently decided going back to school to do something totally different from what I set out to do, and it's constantly sort of improving my space also. So that's the one promise I made to my craft, using that to improve what I currently do, and just seeing how does that improve my space. So those three aspects in my life, I'm promising myself, and I'm using different people or different spectrums to just measure myself and just make sure that I'm actually holding myself to that promise. So it's practical, not very comfortable sometimes, because being that I'm on the same call with coaches, you know how you guys can get. It's not it's not a very comfortable thing when you have a coach. It sort of tends to push you harder than you thought you would, but it actually works. And then after that, you just look at results down the line. 1 week down the line, what do the results say? 2 weeks down the line, 30 days down the line. Then the good thing is, in terms of health, it actually shows, your body shows there's something different you're doing with your body in terms of the promises you're keeping and self growth and things you're promised to do. It actually shows. So again, brings us back to what Mills and also Jasmine said, and also Susan, just making sure you have that log to track what you've been able to do and the things you're able to change within your lifestyle. And it becomes a very interesting way of looking at life. So I think my parting shot on that is progress is not just a feeling. It's that promise you keep to yourself when nobody's watching, nobody's clapping, and nobody's there to tell you you're actually doing it. It's just you keeping those small promises to yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter, and some real nuggets right there. And I was seeing both Jasmine and Mills nodding quite a bit. Do you want to jump in there with some supplementary comments?
Yeah, no, that part on an accountability partner, oof, you have to, I really noted hard when you talked about that, because I recently also found a couple of my friends, and we formed like a mastermind group, just to make sure that we are we are helping each other, we are brainstorming with each other, we are holding each other accountable. And I think and I wish that, especially if you've tried so many times and you keep falling on your own, it's time. It's time you find a partner, you find a group that will help you in that journey. But you all have to pour into each other. So yeah, that part. Thank you for that.
I love that. I also was like, wow, yeah. I think, having that accountability, and I think, Peter, you started from the angle of get support. So, get support from a coach, get support from a friend, and then get support from an accountability partner. And I love that because, yes, you're getting the support, but even with the accountability partner, you're making progress, and acknowledging that progress then refuels you to continue. So I really, really love that, both of them. Both Coach Mills and Peter, what you brought out. Jasmine, go ahead.
All right. I have to say, I loved when Peter said, keep going when no one is clapping. Because when you are driving from your purpose, especially, everyone has a different purpose and a different mission. And if you're doing something that is out of the ordinary, people may not understand you. And that is okay. That's where innovation comes from. So you have to keep going and knowing that what I believe in terms of my purpose or how I'm going to drive this is going to make a difference. And there's this saying, if you believe you can do it. If you believe you can't, that's true too. So it's true both ways. So go on the side of being positive and also making those steps. Project plan yourself if you need to. We do it all the time for work. We always go through with our Excel sheets or whatever apps that you use. Do the same thing. How can I make this big goal? And when we talk about purpose, it's a journey. So it's not a thing where it's I go here and then there. How can I get from point A to point B, then C, then D? Those small steps are going to make a difference personally, professionally, and within your heart as well. So always keep going, always keep striving. And if something is not aligned with you, it's okay to let it go. Sometimes we hold on to things like jobs, people in our circles, and we talk about accountability partners. We have to evaluate those things and say, what is going to be best for what I am trying to do and the people that I'm trying to serve as well.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I think I'm still digesting, but yeah, absolutely. Let go of what's not serving you, and that can be across all your areas, aspects of life. And yeah, I think, stopping and asking and assessing that is really, really critical. As you can see, I'm really digesting what you were saying there. Our audience, I'm seeing some feedback on, how valuable have you found this conversation? I'm seeing some 6 out of 5, loving the knowledge and the vision pouring in this discussion. Another 5 right there. Feel free to drop in your nuggets or moments that have been really aha moments for you, and continue to just engage with our panelists. Please drop in your questions as well. And I just want to take a quick view of some of the nuggets that have been dropped as it is. We started with purpose, narrowing down that purpose is really our compass, and it's a clear sense of purpose that can direct even our minute daily conversations and decisions, that then keeps us going in the right direction. And Coach Mills then, and all of the panelists then, brought in the aspect that purpose begins with that self-awareness. I know myself and I know what I'm working towards. And then we talked about pausing and naming and choosing, and even giving that space for reflection. And we've been digging deeper into that. And as we allow our audience to share some of their aha moments, I'd like to come back to you as the panelists, and just, if you want people to remember one or three, your three top things that you'd like our audience to remember from our conversation today, what would you want that to be? And take your time. We can start with Peter.
The key items for me, I think you have just alluded, is start with the self. First, figure out who you are and what works for you and what it is that you actually love doing. Then, sort of come up with a journey, and how does that look like 3 days down the line. Don't go so far. Don't go 3 years. Don't go 5 years. 3 days down the line, if this is something that I consistently do, how does it look like? A week down the line, how does it look like? Small goals, but then building up to an outrageous outcome. And from where I sit, you're not looking at getting intensity out of this journey. It's just building consistently and just moving bit by bit. So with that movement, you gather momentum. With that momentum, you gather a meaning to it. So 30 days from now, that is momentum for you. A year down the line, then that is a life you're actually building. So for me, just building it slow, and then remember not to chase purpose. Just chase that promise that you've made to yourself, and then purpose will catch up. Chase the promise, purpose will catch up. That's what I want the people to remember.
Excellent. I love that. And trust in somebody from the insurance industry to just point out the power of compounding. And I think that's what you've actually talked about is, don't stop chasing this big picture, rocket science purpose, and focus in on the incremental progress that's getting you there. I love that, Peter. And yeah, I think I'm gonna have to watch this and take my notes on the side, because these are some true nuggets. Coach Mills, let's come to you. If you wanted to our audience to walk away with three key things that they can apply, what would those be?
That's a good one. That's the parting shot, right?
Sure.
Okay, good. So I haven't queued it as 1, 2, 3, but I'm just gonna leave you with a parting shot, and you pick your gems, all right? Now, as I leave you, I know we spend most of our lives asking the question, what am I supposed to do? Now, that is not the right question. I want to invite you to ask the question, to rephrase it and ask, who is God inviting me to become? Because when you become an authentic version of yourself, then your decisions become clearer, your relationships will become healthier, whether it's professional or personal. Your leadership, if you're in leadership, is going to be more authentic, and your work would become more meaningful. Because, like we've said, we've echoed this throughout the whole session, purpose is not a destination. It's a direction, it's a journey. And the most important thing about walking in it is that you keep walking. And here's what I have come to learn, even after years of coaching people through this. The people who live most fully are not the ones who have it all figured out. They are the ones who have committed to this pursuit of discovering who they are and why they are. And they genuinely believe that God has been introducing you to yourself your entire life. through your stories, through your personality, like I shared earlier, through your passions, through your abilities. It's already in you. It's not something you find, it's something you discover because it's within you. All right. It's not something that purpose is not something that you manufacture. It's something you begin recognizing as you grow into self awareness and work closely with your creator. And if you can just allow me, for those who are not of the Christian faith, allow me to just share scripture. Jeremiah 1:5, that is really at the core of what I do. That it says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. What that scripture tells us is that our purpose was never an afterthought. It was the starting point, and we were made with intention, equipped for a specific contribution. In this world right now needs what you only you can bring. You exist in this generation for a purpose, and the quality of your life is deeply, deeply, deeply connected to how well you know the person living it. That is yourself. So don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until the season is perfect. It's never perfect. And don't wait until the doubt goes quiet. There's no perfect timing. So start now, walk in the direction of who you are meant to be, because someone's life, maybe someone who you've never even met, is actually stuck. It's stalled until you find out who you are. So someone's life somewhere is depending on the version of you that finally decides to show up fully. Okay? So all this to say, be intentional about living out your life purpose because someone's life is dependent on it. Thank you.
Wow, that's powerful, Coach Mills. Just powerful. And I'm just like, yo, yeah, the quality of my life is dependent on how well I know myself. And then just to, paraphrase what you were saying, that I have the power to also impact on the quality of others' lives, depending on how authentically I'm living mine out. Thank you so much for that powerful, powerful piece. Jasmine, what do you want us to walk away with?
How am I supposed to follow that one up? Because that is, I feel like that's the end of the show. What am I trying to say at this point? That was beautifully said. I'll give my three. And this is what I think about when we had this discussion. This was a wonderful discussion. Clarity. Clarity is the main thing that pops in my head when I think about purpose. And I think about this because everything is not easy. And when we go on our journeys, it's not a straight road. So when you have clarity, no matter if things get rough, no matter if your faith is shaken at times, because we all have been there as well, we know that every single step is going to lead to some type of outcome as long as we give it that effort. Transparency is another one too. And some people may say it may go hand in hand with clarity, but being transparent, being able to communicate clearly in terms of purpose, where am I at today, where I'm trying to go tomorrow, and if I need to pivot is going to be another one. And then I would say this too, just never quit. I know that when we think about purpose and driving purpose, never quitting is going to be key because once you quit, the story's over and it's on you. And that's the accountability piece there. You cannot blame anybody else for that. So I want people to leave with that for yourselves and also in your professional lives too. So make sure you don't quit on yourself and quit on others.
Wow. Don't quit on yourself. Don't quit on others. And Mill said, just start. Just start. And I think Peter said the same thing. So let's have confidence in ourselves and what we're able to do and give it to the world. We have it all within us. Excellent. Thank you so much. I don't even know what I could possibly say to my panelists because this conversation has been amazing. I've been stealing seconds to be able to jot down my own personal notes. And I hope that our audience has also gotten quite a bit of value. I see them sharing their nuggets and their aha moments, chase the promise, purpose will catch up. Oh, they love that. Change starts within, then self and external impact is the first step. Then review your environment to help it last. Fantastic. So I just want to say a great big thank you so much, Coach Mills, for your insights, and Jasmine and Peter. I think you were divinely selected for this conversation, and it's been quite fruitful. I will allow you to now go backstage so that we can just do the wrap up. But many blessings for what you've done today, and we've shared your contacts on LinkedIn, on the chat, so you might be expecting some DMs asking you further questions. Have a fabulous afternoon, evening, morning, day. Thank you so much. You can unmute and say bye. That's all right.
Bye-bye.
Okay, great. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Thank you.
All right. Wow, I don't know. You guys, I'm feeling full. I'm feeling full. I think I didn't get to eat the lunch, but the learning has really filled me up. And I think that that panel was just amazing. And I have quite a bit of reflection for myself. And as we close the conversation, you know, I find that I've been really reminded that purpose is more than a destination. It's really the source of energy that keeps us going every day, that gives us the resilience, and clarity keeps coming up. And these are the ingredients that make for us being able to move forward, even when the seasons are unpredictable, or we're feeling fatigued, or we're uncertain about moving forward. Our conversation today has helped us to really explore how reconnecting with our purpose, our who we are, and what we're here to do, and even our values, how that helps us to navigate different seasons, maybe challenges or even opportunities, but with intention and remaining grounded and sustaining some meaningful progress. So at the same time, we've seen that the purpose, it flourishes over time. It's not something cast in stone. It flourishes in environments that are supportive. We've explored how, as leaders, we can create those environments that support people being able to explore and engage and continue being fueled by their purpose, but also creating those environments ourselves, taking a moment to pause and take stock. So having these spaces, whether with others or by ourselves, to encourage us to reflect, to grow and align our actions with what matters most. When we lead with purpose and emotional awareness, we not only fuel our own progress, but we also inspire and empower those around us to do the same. Ultimately, lasting impact is created not by doing more, but by staying connected to the reason behind what we do. Thank you all for joining episode 56 of the Lunch and Learn, a topic that is very close to my heart. And I appreciate all the engagement and the participation that you have rendered to this session. Don't forget to drop in the chats the topics that you'd love to see us cover in future sessions. And as you do that, allow me to just take a moment, and I'll ask the team backstage to share the links. As we talked in our conversation today, we really did talk about some of the practical tools that we can apply. And as PTS Africa, we have over the years experienced that question, and that's part of the ethos of what we do. We make it practical and applicable so that it can be sustainable. So we are offering a tool, our mental health reset book, which is a very practical day-to-day applicable book that gives you small prompts to help you do that kind of reflection that we were talking about, and looking forward. So what have I achieved? What am I going forward? And prompting you to be able to reset and refuel. And this is a great time of the year for you to take time to purchase that and be able to start using it in a paced manner. We also have a program, having recognized the vacuum that might exist, or the need for mental wellness programs within organizations. We have the Champion Charlie program that we are launching out. We're looking for organizations that are looking to set up networks mental health champion networks within their organization, and those that already have them, and having conversations about how we can make this a regular practice in organizations where there are people dedicated and focused on promoting wellness within organizations. So I hope the team is dropping down those links for the book, for your pre-order for the book, as well as for getting more information about the Champion Charlie program. Again, I really want to thank you for all your participation. I really appreciate, and this has made my birthday. And we'll do a special shout out to Jasmine, who's a fellow July baby once again, and all July babies. We know we're special. Thank you very much. Tune in. We are here every last Wednesday of the month, 12:30 East African time. Look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you very much. Bye bye now.